Welcome, Star Wars fans, to another deck profile on the channel for the Secrets of Power season. And today we're going over a favorite character of mine, probably for the last time, because she's going to be rotating out of Premiere with the release of the next set. But we can still enjoy her right now. And not only is this one of my favorite characters that we're revisiting that I've been surprisingly successful with, I think a very underrated character, Ahsoka Tano Snips from the Twilight of the Republic starter decks. But this deck is super thematic. It has a ton of cards from the prequel era, from the Republic, the Jedi Order, all that stuff. They all fit in really well. There's only a few units that don't actually fit in that, which is really cool. And it's also a crazy budget-friendly deck. It runs no legendaries in the main deck, 9 rares total. The most expensive card is the Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Spotlight deck. And I clocked this in a TCG player right before I recorded this at under $70 for the whole deck. If you have any of those things already, super cheap, super easy to build. So it's a great deck for someone who's a fan of the character, who wants to play maybe on more of a budget. You're not out there buying copies of every legendary. This might be a great deck for you to play with, and I've been surprisingly successful with it. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it. What's up, everyone? It's Dan with Main Deck, and welcome to our Ahsoka Tano Snips deck profile for the Secrets of Power season. I want to make it really clear, I think there are more consistent, more competitive decks you can play in Star Wars Unlimited, right? You could go play the Anakin decks that I've been able to beat with this deck. Go play the Han 2s, even maybe try a Kit Fisto build. Maybe has a little bit of punch, but I gotta say that Ahsoka Tano, super underrated. If you've just been trying to win games, you want to play this character, or maybe you have a friend or a significant other who really likes Ahsoka, because who doesn't, and wants to play a deck that can maybe keep up a little bit more. I have beaten tons of meta decks with this deck. It's very competent, very playable, and super fun, because with the addition of Secrets of Power, not only do we have this very thematic prequel trilogy package with the Force base from Legends of the Force, but Secrets of Power added some new plot cards. The plot mechanic is like great with Ahsoka, because it allows her to immediately fill her board up, set up her coordinate, and then punch in for a ton of damage. Ahsoka is really the star of the show in this deck, so it's a great thematic deck to show to your friends, show to your family members, get them interested in the game if they are a big fan of this character, or just enjoy yourself. Try to win a store showdown with this. I think that would be a lot of fun. So let's jump in and sort of explain where we're going with this list. Again, Ahsoka Tano Snips from the starter deck in set 3 has Coordinate, Action, Exhaust, Attack with a unit. It gets +1/+0 for this attack. And as it's a Coordinate ability, that means you have to have 3 units in play in order to activate it. Now, that ability, I would say in this version, and in the last profile that I did for Ahsoka, I did a red-yellow Ahsoka deck, and I felt like it was easier to get the action, the exhaust with Ahsoka more often in that list. I don't know if it's just the meta has shifted and things are crazier now, and things are a little more aggressive, and Karases are killing all my stuff, but it is, I've had a lot harder time actually getting to activate this Coordinate without making extremely greedy plays that end up getting me punished instead. So I wouldn't worry a ton about this action. If you can line it up safely, you feel like it works, go for it. Part of this is we're also playing lightsabers and stuff, so you're not always dropping a unit every single turn. But a lot of the time, it doesn't really matter, because the reason we're playing Ahsoka is this flip side. At 5, you can epic action flip Ahsoka into a 3/6 with this Coordinate. She gets +2/+0. So when you think about having that Coordinate online, she's a 5/6 leader on turn 5. It's a very, very aggressive stat line that can deal a lot of damage. But of course, you have to have Coordinate, right? But the addition of these plot cards, which we'll go through when we go through the profile, gives you way more options for surprising your opponent, suddenly building a board out there, and the plot units that we're playing all serve to buff Ahsoka. So not only is she getting an attack in for a base 5, but often from some of your other interactions here, you can go to 7, 9. I've done 11 damage swings on the flip turn with Ahsoka. When you start taking out nearly half of an opponent's base's HP with your leader on the first swing, well, they start to sweat a little bit. So she is a really fun leader to play for that reason. If you want Ahsoka just to do crazy amounts of damage, yeah, definitely give this a try. Now, We're using the Jedi Temple Force base. Obviously, we have to use Jedi Temple because it's thematic, but we're using a Force base for only a couple of Force uses in this deck. Now, I think you might debate whether or not you want to just run a 30 HP base or even try a Data Vault list or something. And, you know, I think those are options. I don't think it's necessarily wrong or anything, but I like the Force base in here because while we're losing 2 HP, the uses we get are pretty strong, pretty powerful, have some really strong interactions in the deck. And one of them in particular does kind of serve to up our damage a little bit as well. So I think of it more as losing 2 HP in order to open up some more damaging lines. And in an aggressive deck like this, I'm happy to take that. I don't want the opponent to be on Data Vault at 32 HP and then I can't close the game. I think it's worth it instead to run the Jedi Temple. But let's jump into the list itself and kind of explain why it's all there. Starting with the ground units, of course, as a Force-based deck, we have a lot of Force-based units, and they're pretty predictable because there's only so many, and we just kind of play the best stat ones. So we have Adi Gallia, Stern and Focused, a 2/4 Force Jedi Republic, and I'm gonna make a note of the Republic tags as we go as well, because we do have one card that pays attention to those, which we'll see in just a second. But she does extra damage to the opponent when they play events. She sometimes does some extra damage, but she holds a General's Blade really well, which is the point, because when you're going to go for the General's Blade lines, when it's very safe, when you can be sure you're not going to get blown out by a Power of the Dark Side, then you can both do a ton of damage and really get the jump on your opponent playing sturdier units that are going to coordinate a little better and do more to the board. So yeah, we love these. We love Gunji finding himself as well. He's a 2/5. Now, he does not have the Republic tag. I wish he did so many times, but he is still a Force unit and a very, very sturdy one at that. We have Jar Jar Binks Misa Propose. This is, I love that Jar Jar is so good. This unit is so great in this deck as a 2-cost plot unit. So when you deploy Ahsoka, you're able to then, within that same action, pay the 2 resources and play this Jar Jar out of your resources. Goes in as a 2/1, a Republic unit. And then also when played, gives +2/+2 units. So you give that +2/+2 to Ahsoka, and now it's so much harder for them to take that Ahsoka off the board. Your damage becomes so much more likely to be dealt, and it's dealing more damage as well. So he really fits the bill really well. Whenever you see him, you just resource him. It's all good. Otherwise, general play pattern, by the way, play unit, attack, play unit, attack, play unit, attack, play unit, put a blade on it, attack. That's sometimes a variant that you do, but this is a very aggressive deck. You want to aim for the opponent's base as much as possible. You want to be the threat. Your opponent is not the threat. Unless you can really tell your opponent's going to outrace you here, but this deck races even like Darth Vader yellow decks really well. It's a surprisingly fast deck, so hit their base, be the problem, make your opponent attack into your stuff. And then to that end, we have the Republic Tactical Officer. I've wanted to use this card in decks for so long. He's just so he's so niche. 2-cost 1/4 Republic clone. When played, you may attack with a Republic unit. He gets +2/+0 for this attack. But finally, I like him in this list a good amount. You have these lines when you're flipping Ahsoka, where you have 5 resources to spend if you're doing it on that turn. You really want to try to flip her on her flip turn when possible. And you have 5 resources to spend, and there's a couple of different lines where you can end up just chunking, that's getting to that like 11 damage line. And the Republic Tactical Officer is a part of those. After attacking with all your other units, getting your opponent to sort of spend their actions, padding things out, then you flip that Ahsoka, you pay 2 to plot that Jar Jar Binks into play, +2/+2 her, and then you hopefully get to keep your Ahsoka in play for a turn. Now, for an action, she's currently at 5 damage without coordinate. Let's say you only had the Ahsoka, your opponent traded everything in, and then they ran out of action. So you flip Ahsoka out as a 3/6, plot Jar Jar Binks, she goes to a 5/8, and then you, on your next action, can play the Ahsoka's Padawan lightsaber on her, give her +2/+0. Now she's a 7/8, which would allow you to attack with her, but in some of these actions, you actually choose not to use that when played now. When you know she's safe, you go, nope, that's okay. She's a 7/8, and now you play the Republic Tactical Officer and then choose Ahsoka for the +2/+0. That turns on your coordinate, brings her to 9/8, and then attacks for 11 damage with that line. That's where the Tactical Officer starts to feel kind of crazy, pushing a ton of damage. And we'll talk about a couple other interactions where he's good, but just generally having this way to play a unit to the board, setting up that coordinate, and then punch in with something feels pretty solid. We're running the new Ahsoka Tano. I learned it from you, who is a 3-cost 2/5, again, a Republic Force, all the things you need. She's a fun unit. I wish she had one more power. I do sometimes feel like she's just slightly behind, but when she completes an attack, you can disclose green heroism, command heroism, which is really, really easy to do, obviously, in this deck. And then you get to immediately attack with something else. So she does get you a little bit of that action compression. I think it's probably worth it in here, but it certainly is a spot you could play with as well. But of course, I like to run it in here because it's another Ahsoka as well, which means it's another fit for this Ahsoka's Padawan lightsaber to be able to be played on to then start to make her a little bit more threatening. And you can set up lines certainly on turn 3 where maybe you go with an Obi-Wan Kenobi protective Padawan, get him down there, sentinel the board, kind of protect your things. Then with your leftover resource, Ahsoka's Padawan lightsaber onto the Ahsoka Tano, swing for 4, and then completes an attack, disclose, and then attack with your other unit. And so you spent 2 actions and you played 2 cards from hand and attacked with your board. And that sets you up to really kind of get ahead on pushing damage on the next turn. So you can always try and punch damage in before your opponent's able to quite answer things. And that's where she ends up being pretty useful. Now, we did talk about Obi-Wan a little bit already, but we're statted insanely well. 3/5 Force Sentinel whenever you play a Force unit, including himself. So he Sentinels just super well. Obviously a little awkward when your opponent takes initiative and then he doesn't have Sentinel, but he saves you all the time. So he's 100% worth running. Does have the Republic tag, does have the Force tag, everything you need. Now, Ki-Adi-Mundi, our first Force use in here. We must push on by drawing a lot of cards, and we're playing an extremely powerful card from Secrets of Power that Ki-Adi-Mundi plays in super well. Honestly, this is like the big reason to run the Force base, because this Ki-Adi-Mundi on your turn 3, just to restock your hand, especially when you're planning on plotting a lot on the next turn, which you're going to be playing out of your resource row. By doing all these things, you keep a pretty significant hand size. And by keeping a significant hand size while you're still committing to the board, you're still playing aggressive units, you set up for aggressive negotiations to be an absolutely broken card. Absolutely crazy when you line up the math and you go, actually, this is insane right now. If I don't play a resource this turn, I just use aggressive negotiations, attack with a unit. I have 5 cards in hand, plus the aggressive, so I'm going to attack for +5 on this attack, and you just kill opponent out of nowhere with this card. Of course, the artwork does have Padme, so again, that prequel theme, we love it to see it whenever we can. But yeah, the card in here is crazy because of the amount of damage you can push. You can throw this, use this with that Ahsoka Tano to get a big attack in and then a second attack. And you can just do, there's all sorts of ways just to find surprising damage out of nowhere. So I love that Ki-Adi-Mundi for kind of enabling that, enabling your hand size to stay full, so that their aggressive negotiations is finally like a good payoff for playing these cards that are just drawing us cards. But in this case, we don't want to just draw cards. We want to commit units to the board as well. So he's perfect for that. Now, the other unit that I really like here at the 4-drop slot is Quinlan Vos, Dark Disciple, because there are a ton of things as a Republic and Force Jedi that are going to give him the extra power that he needs to turn on this on attack to do a crazy amount of damage. We just talked about aggressive negotiations, which you can use with Quinlan Vos. We just talked about the Republic Tactical Officer, who can cause Quinlan Vos to hit that threshold. We can talk about putting lightsabers on him. Even Ahsoka's Padawan lightsaber doesn't have to go on Ahsoka. It can go on Quinlan just to set up that extra damage, because it ends up being +2, which then turns on the ability, which is +2 more damage. So it's like it's a +4/+0 upgrade for 1, which is, that's a pretty crazy deal. Finally, the last thing you do is you can actually Jar Jar Quinlan Vos if you want to as well, especially something that can come up if you don't quite close the game off on the plot turn and you just need to push a little more. You can have a Jar Jar in hand, play the Jar Jar from hand to buff the Quinlan Vos, make him a 6/7, hard to deal with. And then once he gets that attack off, he's going to deal 9 damage, and then, you know, there you go. So yeah, Quinlan Vos has been a nice little addition to the deck. And our final ground unit, Mace Windu, our other Force payoff here. He just does a lot. He does a lot. But one thing that he does really well is when you have that General's Blade out, he is a perfect card to play on the turn 4. Or excuse me, the turn 3 with your 4 resources. If you can get a swing in with the Adigali or the Gunji, you have 6 resources effective to play on a unit then. So you play the Mace Windu, you have the Force, you nuke whatever they played that turn and have a 6/6. And usually you set yourself up to win on the flip turn when you get to do that. Alternatively, a nice addition here is we are playing a couple of copies of Timely Intervention to be able to give ambush to things. And Timely Intervention and Mace are such a beautiful pairing when you go into a turn 5, a 6 resource turn, where you can get a swing off with a General's Blade. You have -2 on the cost of the next unit you play, and Timely costs 2 to play out of resources. So you can pretty easily set up that sudden, oh, surprise, actually, I'm going to Timely Intervention. My Mace Windu, deal 4 damage to this, then ambush this other thing, or even do, a total of 10 damage to one thing if you need to get a big thing off the board, and then gain the force when he gets that attack off, so you're kind of set up to be able to play another one next turn or something. So yeah, he's really good. Obviously, I mean, I think everyone knows he's good, but those are some of the lines that end up being pretty effective with him. Now, going to space, we have, unfortunately, a non-prequel trilogy unit, a couple of them in here. The Green Squadron A-Wing. Look, I was running Anakin's Interceptor here for a while because it was thematic, but a friend said, just come on, Green Squadron A-Wing's better for an aggressive deck. Like, yeah, I mean, you're right. I would love to run Anakin's Interceptor, and if you just want to play thematic, go for it. Just like toss the Interceptor in there because it fits better. But this is technically going to be better in most games because it is a little bit more of an aggressive unit, and the 1 extra damage when it's attacked is not going to be relevant for you. We are also playing Blue Leader, another non-prequel trilogy unit, but I'm going to say don't take this one out. This card is nuts. It's crazy. It's always good. It works so well with General's Blade. You're able to play it earlier because of that. It's just a big threat wherever you need it to be. It's going to ambush those Sentinels off the board, get the Obi-Wans out of there, clear the way for the attack. I never, ever, ever, ever regret having Blue Leader. I think it's one of the strongest units in the game, so of course we're playing that here. And then finally, Naboo Royal Starship, fit for a queen, is our last unit we're going to look at. And man, I underrated this card when it was first spoiled. I think this card is really, really sweet. As a 2/5 in space, on your flip turn, it is like the opponent has to be kind of dedicated to take it out while it's in the space arena. And so it kind of just sits there. It's a unit for coordinate that's hard to get rid of. It then also can attack for 2 on its own the next turn, but it buffs Ahsoka with Raid 2 and Overwhelm. And the Raid 2, obviously really good. It's just like the, getting a buff from Jar Jar or something for that turn, except it's sitting there and lingering turn after turn. So it's a bit better than that. And then having the Overwhelm is even funnier because now when your opponent tries to put a smaller Sentinel in the way, like maybe they play a Chancellor Palpatine, I am the Senate, and put those 0/2 spies with Sentinel into play, and you go, okay, I'll attack into one with my leader and still overwhelm you for 7 or something. Like it's surprisingly impactful, honestly. So I love this card. I think it's fantastic. It is, again, not a Republic unit. None of our space units are Republic units anymore, unfortunately, but that's okay because we're often just wanting to use our tactical officer on our ground units, which are much better, but they all do a pretty good job of kind of supporting us. And you have plot lines with the Naboo Royal Starship it's really important just to kind of think about your thresholds and your lines for how you're going to play out your plot turn. But you have plot turns with Jar Jar into aggressive negotiations. You have plot turn with, like I said, Jar Jar into lightsaber into tactical officer. And you have plot turns with Naboo Royal Starship into Padawan lightsaber. When you do that, that sets you up, if you have the coordinate, again for just a 9 damage swing with that Raid 2, with that Overwhelm, which is an awful lot. I mean, it's still just an awful lot of damage that the opponent has to deal with. And if they don't take initiative, they're probably in a really bad spot going into the next turn. So yeah, it's surprisingly good. Again, I just love all these plot cards that can set up the coordinate. It's super sick. We already talked about some of the events, but just to mention again, Timely Intervention, to give certain things ambush, just a couple of copies. It's freely kind of resource it a lot of the time, unless you're seeing that you might need to do an ambush for one. Holding on to, for example, a Mace Windu and a Timely going to a 7 resource turn might be kind of clutch. But we just have a couple in there just to help mostly deal with things like Sentinels. Aggressive Negotiations, just an insane card. It's like Surprise Strike, but for red. It sometimes is just a 1 cost more than Surprise Strike, which still feels good. And other times it's like crazy, like +5 damage attacks. Absolutely nuts. And then we're running 3 copies of Open Fire because Open Fire gets rid of things on the board. You just sometimes need an answer. Your opponent's going to try and do something silly, something cheeky in space. They're going to try and flip a pilot leader onto something. They're putting a Sentinel out there. They're putting out a Victor leader, and they're going to try and race you with Darth Vader. And you just gotta, I just feel like it's just a nice card to have. It answers a lot of things, and it's good. And then finally, we talked about both the upgrades here as well. Ahsoka's Padawan lightsaber, get that attack compression with that card play, +2/+0 attack with Ahsoka, or attack with any unit when you play, but usually attack with Ahsoka. And then General's Blade is crazy. It obviously can be played on so many of your units. You have a lot of Jedi. You can even throw it on Ahsoka herself, make her gigantic, do a ton of damage that way. Put it on that Quinlan, do a 9 damage swings with him while you're also reducing the cost of the rest of your stuff. It's a crazy card. It's going to be one of the cards I'm going to be saddest to see go once it rotates, because it just feels so good to play a General's Blade and have it sit there and get to attack with things. You get so far ahead so fast. It's almost always worth taking that gamble, unless they're playing blue villainy. Then they have the power. I promise you they have the power. Don't do it unless you have something else on board that you can defeat instead of the thing that has the General's Blade on it. So that's the list. Again, aggressive list. You're just going to play these units. You're going to attack the opponent's base. You're going to do a crazy amount of damage on your Ahsoka flip turn, and your opponent's going to go, why did I just lose to Ahsoka? And you're going to say, well, because you underestimated Snips. She's kind of a beast sometimes. Now again, not a tier 1 deck, not the most competitive deck in the world, but man, if you love Ahsoka, definitely give this a whirl. Now let's quickly talk about some sideboard options. And in this one, instead of providing you with 5 kind of different options that I've just been toying with, I have a transformational sideboard concept that I want to share with you. Something that I haven't done a ton of testing with, but in some of the matchups where I've lost, I've just felt like I am not staying in the game long enough. I'm running out of steam because their things are better than mine. And here's some options you can consider if you want to try and completely shift the gameplay of this deck to be more mid-range and long game, using that force base a little more. I would say when you do this, you can take out some of the most aggressive plays. The Quinlans can leave. Possibly something like the taking out the A-Wings is probably okay, since you're going to be putting in a new 2-drop. You can even remove the open fires if it feels like the units they're playing are just not going to be valuable, and you can remove copies of things like Naboo Royal Starship, just because you only really need to see 1. There's no reason to have the 3 in there if you're trying to really extract a little bit more space out of the deck. And by removing some of those, you can fit in the Jedi Consular, so you can start to play higher drop things even faster with all of your force units. You can play a couple copies of Cham Syndulla, which means that if they're going to play any resupplies, and I see a lot of resupplies these days, especially things like Han 1 decks that are resupplying turn 1, that Cham Syndulla will let you kind of keep up on resources a little more, which is good if you're going to try and go into playing the late game with them. 2 copies of Tranquility. You guys know I love this 2 of in these decks that allows you to just keep looping, play a Tranquility, take a Tranquility back, keep doing that so you don't run out of steam in the late game. You put a giant threat into space that they have to deal with. And in this deck, there's a lot of Republic cards, so even that on attack can be useful. But of course, you can use it to bring back the strongest Republic unit, Yoda, My Ally is the Force, which you'll also bring in from the side, which will now give you the ability to heal your base, the ability to spend the Force on some of those other things, including things like just activating a Jedi Consular if you need another use of the Force. To be able to trigger this ability to deal damage to units and control the board, get that recovery in, and then bring them back when your opponent takes them down with the Tranquility. So this kind of package gives you a bit more of a long game potential. And when you're going up against some of these control decks that are going to try and hold you down a little bit more, you might want to just try and play a little bit more on their level if you're pretty confident you're not going to be able to get there. But this deck is fast. It is furious. There are a lot of decks that it can keep pace with, but it's something you can try if you want to mess around with some more fun cards. And again, a lot of this pretty thematic as well, which we really like. And again, it's not even going to add a lot of cost. I think, again, it's $70 on TCG Player as of recording for the main deck. And I think the side deck here is going to add another like $10 or $15 at most or something. It's not crazy. So I would love to know what you all think. Give this deck a whirl, try Ahsoka out, or just let me know what you think of the concept down below. This might be our last hurrah for Ahsoka, but she had so many fun pickups in the last 2 sets that I had to play with her. I had to talk about her, and I know I've gotten messages from you guys. There's a lot of Ahsoka fans out there. I'm there with you. Hope you give the deck a try. Hope you find it successful. Learn how to play it. Learn how to be aggressive. Don't be afraid to be the problem, and let me know how it goes down in the comments down below. Otherwise, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned. Subscribe for more Star Wars Limited and other TCG content, and we'll see you all in the next one.